There's a house style so narrow you could stand at the front door, fire a shotgun straight through it, and the bullet would exit the back door without touching a single wall. That's not a legend. That's literally where the name comes from. And in 2026, builders are taking this 200-year-old floor plan, shrinking it down to tiny house size, and putting a real, honest-to-God burning chimney right through the middle of it. Not a fake stovepipe glued on for looks. A real chimney, doing real work in a home that might cost less than your car. If you've ever wanted a tiny home that actually feels like a house instead of a shed with a loft bed, hit subscribe right now, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this build costs in 2026, where the chimney money actually goes, why you can't just bolt a brick chimney onto a trailer, and the one design flaw that almost kills this layout if you get it wrong. Stick around, because I'm going to show you the exact builder doing this style today, and the number they don't put in their brochure. The shotgun house shows up in American cities in the mid-1800s, especially across the South, in places like New Orleans, Louisville, and Memphis. These homes typically ran about 12 to 14 feet wide and up to 3 rooms deep, built for working-class families who needed an affordable home on a narrow city lot. There's no hallway. You walk straight from the front door, through the living room, through the bedroom, and end up in the kitchen at the back. 1 room wide, several rooms deep, and every single room lines up in a straight shot. Historians actually trace the roots of this design further back than most people realize. A lot of architectural historians connect the shotgun house to building traditions carried through New Orleans by Haitian and West African immigrants, where narrow, single-room wide homes were already common long before the style spread across the American South. So this isn't just a poor man's house from the 1800s. It's a design with real ancestry. Most shotgun homes historically landed somewhere between 600 and 1,200 square feet, and the trick that makes them feel bigger than they are is height. Ceilings run tall, sometimes 10 to 12 feet, which tricks your eye into thinking you're standing in a much larger space. And nearly every shotgun house has a front porch, because in a house this narrow, the porch was the living room. That's where you sat, that's where you talked to your neighbors, that's where the house actually breathed. There are variations too. A double shotgun is really 2 single shotgun homes built side by side, sharing one center wall, which is how a lot of these neighborhoods got their density without ever going above 1 story. Some also have a camelback addition, a second story tacked onto the back half of the house, usually to dodge property taxes that were once based on how many stories face the street. Clever, cheap, and very southern. One of the most famous surviving examples is a shotgun house in Tupelo, Mississippi. It happens to be Elvis Presley's birthplace, a small 2-room shotgun home. That tells you something about who these homes were built for. Not mansions, working families. Here's the part most tiny home content skips completely. In a traditional shotgun house, the chimney wasn't just decoration. Rooms lined up in a straight row with no hallway, so a centrally placed chimney and fireplace could heat 2 or even 3 rooms from one single source. That's an efficient design nearly 2 centuries before anyone was using the word efficient in a YouTube title. A real renovation out of New Orleans shows exactly how this works even today. Architect Bob Bowdit and contractor Joel Lundstrom reworked an old single shotgun house, and the layout was built around a restored fireplace with its original painted brick chimney and Victorian-style mantels. The homeowner opened up the walls around that fireplace to connect the front sitting room to the dining space. And the result, on a home under 1,000 square feet, was a home that felt open instead of cramped, with 12-foot ceilings doing a lot of the heavy lifting. That's the blueprint modern tiny shotgun builders are chasing. The chimney isn't just heat. It's the anchor the whole floor plan gets built around. Let's talk real numbers, because this is where a lot of tiny home budgets get blown. You have 2 paths. A prefabricated chimney, which uses stainless steel or other metal components to safely vent a wood stove or fireplace, and a custom masonry chimney built from brick or stone. Prefabricated metal chimney systems typically run $1,000 to $5,000 fully installed, with most mid-range installs landing right around $3,500. They're lighter, faster to put up, and a lot more forgiving on a tiny home structure. A custom masonry chimney, brick or stone, generally runs $5,000 to $15,000 or more, depending on height, footers, and how decorative you go with the brickwork. A standard 30-foot masonry chimney installed in the center of a home averages around $6,500. Now, here's the correction that matters most if you're building this on wheels instead of a foundation. A full structural brick chimney weighs thousands of pounds and needs a poured concrete footing beneath it, sunk below the frost line. You cannot safely stack that kind of weight onto a trailer chassis without risking your axle ratings and your towing stability. So if your shotgun tiny house is going on wheels, you are not getting a real masonry chimney. You'll be using a prefabricated steel flue system or a thin brick or stone veneer applied over a framed wood wall to get that same look without the structural weight. Real, load-bearing masonry is reserved almost exclusively for permanent, foundation-built versions of this house. If a builder tells you they're putting a full brick chimney on your trailer build, that's a red flag worth asking hard questions about. Once your chimney is installed, don't forget the ongoing cost. Annual chimney sweeps typically run around $255, and inspections can range anywhere from $100 to $5,000 depending on what they find. Budget for that every single year, not just a move-in. Now zoom out to the full build, because the chimney is a piece of a bigger number. In 2026, tiny homes overall are running somewhere between $200 and $400 per square foot, with a full build landing between $30,000 and $100,000 depending on size, finishes, and whether you're swinging the hammer yourself or hiring it out. DIY builds sit at the lower end of that range. Fully turnkey, professional builds sit at the top. Break that down further, and here's roughly where your money goes on a shotgun-style build. Permits typically run $1,000 to $5,000 depending on your jurisdiction. Architectural or design work adds another $2,000 to $8,000. Inspections plus utility hookups land somewhere around $500 to $1,500. If you're hiring professionals for the build itself, labor eats up 30 to 40% of your total budget. If you want this house mobile, a purpose-built tiny home trailer runs $5,000 to $12,000, depending on length and axle configuration. If you're going permanent instead, a standard concrete slab foundation runs $4,000 to $9,000, depending on your soil conditions and foundation type. Add your chimney on top of whichever path you choose. And now you understand why a shotgun tiny house with real masonry isn't a $20,000 weekend project. It's closer to a serious, permanent home build. On wheels with a veneered chimney and simpler finishes, you can absolutely land closer to that $35,000 entry point. The old shotgun house had one real flaw. You had to walk through the bathroom or bedroom to get anywhere else in the house. No privacy. Modern versions have fixed this. Today's shotgun floor plans place bathrooms where they actually make sense instead of stuck randomly in the middle of the house. Kitchens get redesigned to actually be usable, and rooms are arranged so the whole place doesn't feel like a bowling alley. Builders now also cheat the width slightly or add dormer windows just to steal back a little extra square footage. And because this is a real, code-compliant house now, not a historic relic, new shotgun designs include central air, proper kitchens, and updated electrical, all built to meet current residential codes. That's a huge shift from the original version of this house. And it's exactly why the style is having a moment in the tiny home world right now instead of just staying a museum piece in New Orleans. There's also a code layer specific to that centrally placed wood stove or fireplace we've been talking about. Building codes, including NFPA 211 and the IRC's tiny house provisions under Appendix Q, require strict clearances to anything combustible around a wood stove, often somewhere between 12 and 36 inches, or protective hearth shielding if you can't hit that clearance. In a narrow 8.5 to 12-foot wide space, that clearance requirement is not a small detail. It can eat up a meaningful chunk of your already limited walkway. Before we get to who's building these today, it's worth slowing down on something the original shotgun house builders understood instinctively, long before anyone called it passive design. Line up every door in a straight row from front to back. Open them all, and you create a single unbroken air channel straight through the house. Warm air rises and pulls out through the back, Cooler air gets drawn in through the front, and the whole home ventilates itself without a single fan running. That's exactly why this style thrived in the humid, pre-air conditioning South. It wasn't charming by accident. It was survival. Modern builders who understand this are placing operable transom windows above interior doors and keeping that front-to-back sight line intact even where they've added a bathroom or bedroom nook off to the side. Break that straight air channel completely, and you lose the one built-in cooling advantage this shape has always had. Combine that airflow with a centrally placed chimney pulling warm air up and out in winter, and you've basically got a house that manages its own temperature in both directions, hot and cold, using nothing but geometry. This isn't just a nostalgia trend either. Real builders are producing this style today. State Line Builders, for example, built what they call the shotgun, a portable building directly inspired by the historic Southern shotgun house, designed around that same 12 to 14-foot width and up to 3-room depth that defined the original style. Their challenge wasn't the aesthetic, it was making a portable structure hit residential ceiling heights while still staying within hauling restrictions on the road. That last part deserves its own explanation because it trips people up constantly. Standard highway travel without a special wide load permit caps vehicle width at 8.5 feet in most states. A true 12 to 14-foot wide historical shotgun footprint simply does not fit under that limit. So if you want that authentic, full-width shotgun silhouette and you want to actually drive it down the highway, you're looking at wide load transport permits every single time that house moves. Most builders solve this one of two ways. They either narrow the design down to trailer legal width, which changes the proportions of the house, or they build it as a stationary, foundation-set structure from day one and skip the road entirely. Know which one you're buying before you fall in love with the listing photos. Here's the thing nobody tells you before you fall in love with this style. That straight line from front door to back door, the exact feature that gives this house its name, is also the reason a lot of shotgun tiny homes fail at privacy and airflow if the chimney and fireplace aren't placed correctly. And it's not just about ventilation. Remember those clearance codes we just covered? Put a wood stove dead center in an 8.5-foot wide space without planning it down to the inch. And that required clearance zone alone can block your only walkway front to back. In a house with no hallway, that's not a minor inconvenience. That's when the entire home stops functioning. Put it in the right spot, offset just enough to preserve your walking path, anchoring the rooms around it the way that New Orleans renovation did, and you get cross-ventilation, even heat distribution, and a home that feels twice its actual square footage. The chimney isn't just where the fire goes. In this layout, it's the one decision, measured in inches, that decides whether the whole house works or doesn't. This style isn't for everyone, and it's worth being honest about that instead of selling you a fantasy. A shotgun tiny house works best for 1 or 2 people who value character over open-concept living. Because every room connects directly to the next with no hallway buffering sound or sight lines. This is not the layout for a family that needs separate, private spaces for kids and parents under one roof. It's also not the layout for anyone who hates walking through one room to reach another, because depending on where your bathroom lands, that might be an unavoidable part of daily life, even in the modern rework versions. Where this style genuinely shines is narrow infill lots in cities where a wide footprint simply won't fit, and for anyone who specifically wants that long, straight sight line and tall ceiling feel over a boxier tiny home layout. If that's you, the chimney down the center isn't just a heat source anymore. It becomes the visual and functional heart of a home that's doing a lot more with 12 feet of width than you'd think possible. A few fast questions people always ask about this style. Can you build a shotgun tiny house on a permanent foundation and still keep it affordable? Yes, and honestly, this is where the numbers make the most sense because you skip the trailer cost entirely and you're free to use real masonry if you want it. Do you need a real fireplace? Or can you fake the look? You can absolutely fake it. A thin brick or stone veneer over framing gives you almost the entire visual payoff of a masonry chimney at a fraction of the weight and cost. And it's the only realistic option if you're building on wheels. Is this style legal everywhere? Depends entirely on your local zoning and whether your jurisdiction treats it as a primary dwelling, an accessory dwelling unit, or a recreational vehicle. Always check local codes before you fall in love with a floor plan. Does insurance cost more because of the chimney? Usually yes, a little. Insurers generally treat a home with an active wood-burning fireplace or stove as a higher fire risk than an all-electric tiny home. So expect your premium to reflect that. It's a small line item compared to the build cost, but factor into your yearly budget alongside the chimney sweep and inspection costs we covered earlier. What's the biggest mistake first-time buyers make with this style? Underestimating how much the chimney decision cascades into everything else. People pick the romantic, exposed brick look in their head, then get a quote for a full masonry build and realize it doesn't fit their trailer or their budget. Decide early whether you're building on wheels or on a foundation, because that single choice determines your chimney type, your total cost, and honestly your entire construction timeline. So that's the real 2026 cost, the real history, the real weight limits, and the one design decision that makes or breaks a shotgun tiny house. If you want to see the full build budget broken down room by room in a future video, let me know in the comments. And if this helped you picture your own tiny home, subscribe so you don't miss it. Same time next week, we're taking on another forgotten American house style and shrinking it down to fit your budget.